But let me now link up with Nerima, who is also standing by for us for that important element. Nerima, will I be right in terms of my judgment to say that it's counterproductive, it's self-defeating for the government to use the police to address a health issue, which in the end might turn out to be even bringing about more complicated issue for the government to handle in terms of the healthcare crisis for COVID-19?
I wouldn't say that it's counterproductive. I think, unfortunately, culturally, we are a country that is policed a lot. I say this because even when we think about our examinations for class 8, we are completely comfortable with having police or the military present at schools and watching 12-year-olds doing an exam and making sure that they are not cheating. So when we talk about that and we see that we utilize force during examinations, so we're talking about education, so why wouldn't we use them during health? So I think that as a country, we've sort of grown used to the idea that we need to be watched to be able to obey. And I can say that even when we see Nairobi City, for instance, when we look at traffic lights, people don't necessarily obey them unless they see a police officer standing somewhere at a corner and they feel that they need to follow the lights. So I do think, in a sense, we have grown up to understanding that without the police, then we won't follow. And even with these enforcements that we're talking about, we're still seeing people completely ignoring curfews. And we're not talking about ordinary individuals. In Nyeri, we saw MCAs. We're seeing people who are supposed to understand this law and follow this law, going against that law. And they're supposed to be living by example. So I wouldn't say that it defeats the purpose. I would say that there is a need for the police force in a sense, because we've culturally grown up to need them. But I do believe that there's a sense of sensitization that is lacking, where we now see the police dealing with people as if they are children, where you're caning individuals and not necessarily trying to understand the matter or the occurrence. Because when we have a young woman who died in labor over the weekend because people were too afraid to go outside and take her to the hospital. So she died in labor in her own home.
Okay.
So that, I think, is where the discrepancies lie.
When CS Mutahi Kagwe, who of course is at the forefront of the updates, the regular updates in regards to COVID-19 in the country, was challenged in regard to the police brutality, he said, I quote him, "Don't make it difficult for the police to come into contact with you." Is this perhaps an admission that the government is seeing human rights violations which are against the Constitution and illegal as a secondary issue, even in the fight against the pandemic?
I believe that they are, and I also believe that CS Kagwe has made sentiments that have been taken absolutely the wrong way, even what he said about young people. And again, it goes back to how we culturally speak to one another, where he's now speaking to us, like I mentioned, as if we are children. So I do believe that it doesn't seem as a priority right now. They don't want to really talk about human rights. What are rights when there's a virus happening and this virus can kill us all? We should be caring about how can we contain the virus, and then your rights come second. And this is not just an issue that is happening in Kenya. And that's why we're seeing a lot of developed countries concerned. I mean, in the US, people are going on strike because they feel that their rights are being violated because they cannot work. So I think that each country is dealing with it differently. And I truly believe that if we do not understand how we are as a people, then we cannot communicate to the people properly. And I think that's something that the Ministry of Health is completely failing in, how to communicate. Not communicating in a sense where you're instilling fear, where you're forcing people to follow the law because of a spread of a virus, but allowing people to understand that it's for their good. And we're doing this to protect you. So I'll say that in the aspect of human rights violations, they're going to increase. We're going to see domestic violence increasing as well. And the presence of a hotline, because CS Margaret Kobia announced that there's going to be a hotline, is not something that is a solution for us.
Okay.
There are still women who are going to be kicked out of their homes today due to domestic violence, due to the stress of the economy right now.
Okay.